Tonight we're going to talk about something that Hollywood has completely romanticized, how the real lives of Caribbean pirates during the golden age of piracy. I know it sounds like an exciting topic for a bedtime story, but honestly, the day-to-day reality was far more mundane than swashbuckling adventures would have you believe. It's a fascinating slice of maritime history about real people just trying to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to the Caribbean Sea in 1715, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that comfortable bed by the time we're done. So congratulations, you just woke up in the Caribbean, sometime around dawn in the year 1715. At the height of what historians call the golden age of piracy. It's early morning, maybe 5 or 6. And you're not in some romantic 4-poster bed with silk sheets. You're lying on a thin straw mattress in a cramped hammock, swaying gently with the motion of your ship as it rocks at anchor in a secluded bay off the coast of Nassau. The air is thick and humid, even at this early hour. You can taste the salt on your lips, feel the sticky moisture clinging to your skin beneath the rough linen shirt that serves as your night clothes. The hammock is made of coarse rope that's left permanent indentations in your back and shoulders after months of sleeping this way. There's a persistent smell that hits your nose, a mixture of salt water, tar, rotting wood, unwashed bodies, and something sharper and more unpleasant. The bilge water that's been sitting in the bottom of the ship for weeks. You're below deck in the crew's quarters, a space so cramped that the hammocks hang less than arm's length apart. The ceiling is so low that even sitting up requires you to hunch your shoulders. The wooden hull creaks constantly around you, the timbers groaning and sighing with each gentle roll of the waves. Water drips somewhere in the darkness. It always drips somewhere on a ship this old. Shifting slightly, you feel the hammock sway in response to your movement. Your body aches in a dozen different places. Your hands are permanently calloused from hauling rope. Your back throbs from the constant bending required by the low deck. And there's a persistent pain in your left shoulder from where a block and tackle caught you during a storm 3 weeks ago. This is your life now. You're a crew member aboard the merchant vessel turned pirate ship Revenge, under the command of Captain Samuel Blackwood, though that's probably not his real name. Most pirates use aliases, leaving their old identities behind like shed skins when they take to the account, as piracy is known among those who practice it. Let's talk about how you ended up here, swaying in this cramped hammock in the stifling heat of a Caribbean morning, because the story might not be what you'd expect from the movies. You weren't born into piracy. You weren't the son of a famous pirate captain or a romantic figure seeking adventure on the high seas. No, your path to this life was far more mundane, and in many ways more representative of how most men found themselves living under the black flag. You were a sailor in the Royal Navy, pressed into service against your will when you were barely 16. Press gangs roamed the ports of England, grabbing any man who looked like he could haul a rope or climb a mast. You'd been working as a dock labourer in Portsmouth when they took you, beaten unconscious with a club and waking up already at sea, legally the property of His Majesty's Navy for as long as they saw fit to keep you. Life in the Navy was brutal beyond description. The food was rotten more often than not, meat and weevil-infested hardtack that you had to eat in the dark, so you couldn't see what was crawling in it. Salt pork so old it had turned green, and water that had been sitting in wooden casks so long it was thick with algae and tasted like death itself. The discipline was savage. Men were flogged for the smallest infractions, talking back to an officer, falling asleep on watch, even looking at a superior the wrong way. You watched good men receive 24 lashes that stripped the flesh from their backs, leaving them unable to work for weeks. Some died from infected wounds, others threw themselves over the side rather than endure another day. You lean back in your hammock now, feeling its rough support beneath you, and take a slow, deep breath. The memory of those Navy days feels distant, like something that happened to someone else. Your breathing naturally falls into a steady rhythm, in through your nose, out through your mouth. The gentle swaying of the ship is actually quite soothing once you get used to it. The turning point came 2 years ago, when your Navy ship encountered a pirate vessel off the coast of Jamaica. The pirates offered quarter miss a surrender and join us, or fight and die. Half the crew went over to the pirates without hesitation, and you were among them. Not out of any romantic notion of freedom or adventure, but simply because anything had to be better than the hell you'd been living. And in many ways it was better. Pirates, for all their reputation for cruelty, actually lived under a more democratic system than any navy in the world. The captain was elected by the crew and could be removed by vote if he proved unsatisfactory. Major decisions were made by council, with every man having a voice. Booty was divided according to written articles that everyone agreed to before setting sail. More importantly, the food was better. When you took a prize ship, you ate like kings for days. Fresh meat, vegetables, wine, even luxuries like sugar and spices. The discipline was harsh when necessary, but it wasn't the arbitrary cruelty of Navy officers who saw common sailors as less than human. But this morning, as you wake in your cramped hammock, you're reminded that pirate life has its own hardships. The Revenge has been at sea for 3 months now, and it's been 6 weeks since you took a prize. The food situation is getting desperate again. Water is running low and there are rumblings of discontent among the crew. Outside you can hear the sounds of the ship beginning its daily routine. Feet on the deck above, the rattle of rigging as someone adjusts the sails. Voices calling back and forth in the peculiar mixture of English, Spanish and Portuguese that serves as the common tongue among Caribbean pirates. Someone is already working the pumps a ship this old takes on water constantly, and keeping it afloat requires constant effort. You swing your legs over the side of the hammock, feeling your bare feet touch the rough wooden deck. The planks are slightly damp, as they always are below deck, and worn smooth by the passage of countless feet. Standing up requires a careful duck of your head. The deck beams are barely 6 feet high, and you've learned through painful experience to watch for the hanging lanterns and spare rigging that can catch an unwary man across the skull. Your few possessions are stored in a canvas sea bag wedged into a corner near your hammock. Everything you own in the world fits in this single bag. A spare shirt, a pair of canvas trousers, a worn leather belt, a clasp knife that serves as your primary tool for everything from cutting rope to eating, and a small wooden cup for drinking your daily ration of rum. There's also a small leather pouch containing your share of the last prize, 14 pieces of 8, and a handful of smaller Spanish coins. It's not much, certainly not the treasure chests full of gold that people imagine pirates possess. Most of the time, prizes yield cargo rather than cash. Barrels of sugar, bales of tobacco, bolts of cloth, tools and supplies that can be sold in the black markets of Nassau or Port Royal. You pull on your day clothes, the same rough canvas trousers and linen shirt you've been wearing for weeks. Everything smells of salt and sweat and tar. Privacy is a luxury that doesn't exist on a pirate ship, so you dress quickly while other men around you are doing the same. all of you moving with the economical gestures of people who've learned to live in impossibly cramped quarters. The gun deck is even more crowded than the sleeping quarters. 6 12-pound cannons line each side of the ship, massive iron beasts that take up most of the available space. During battle, these guns become the heart of the ship's offensive power, but most of the time they're just obstacles to navigate around. Their carriages blocking walkways and their bulk making every movement awkward. The cannons are secured with heavy rope and tackle to prevent them from rolling with the ship's motion. You've seen what happens when a gun breaks loose in heavy weather. A 2,000-pound iron cannon careening across the deck can crush a man like an insect or punch a hole right through the ship's side. Every man aboard learns to check the gun lashings as automatically as breathing. You make your way carefully between the guns toward the ladder leading to the upper deck, your hands automatically reaching out to steady yourself against familiar handholds as the ship rolls gently with the morning swell. Hauls in Nordazines. The motion is second nature now, your body automatically adjusting to the ship's movement without conscious thought. The wooden rungs of the ladder are worn smooth and slightly slippery from the constant passage of hands. You climb carefully, muscle memory guiding your movements in the dim light filtering down from above. Your shoulders and arms have grown strong from months of this constant climbing, hauling, and balancing. A sailor's strength comes not from lifting heavy weights, but from the endless small exertions of shipboard life. Emerging onto the upper deck is like stepping into a different world. After the cramped, fetid air below, the morning breeze feels like a blessing. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but the eastern horizon is painted in shades of orange and pink that reflect off the gently rolling surface of the Caribbean Sea. The air is still relatively cool, though you know that within a few hours it will become a blazing furnace. The Revenge is anchored in a small bay surrounded by thick mangrove forest. This is one of dozens of hidden anchorages scattered throughout the Caribbean, known only to pirates and smugglers. From the sea, the entrance is almost invisible, hidden behind a screen of vegetation and coral reefs that would tear the bottom out of any ship whose captain didn't know exactly where to navigate. Other members of the crew are already up and about their morning tasks. There's no sharp division between officers and common sailors on a pirate ship. Everyone works, including the captain when necessary. You can see the quartermaster, a grizzled man named Roberts, checking the ship's stores and making notes in a waterproof journal. The carpenter is examining a section of the rail that was damaged during the last storm, testing the wood with his fingers to determine if it needs replacement. Near the bow, the ship's cook, near one-legged former Navy man called simply Cook, is already preparing the morning meal. The galley is nothing more than a brick-lined firebox on deck, dangerous in any kind of weather, but absolutely essential for preparing the crew's food. This morning's breakfast will be burgoo, a thick porridge made from whatever grain is available, mixed with salt pork and hardtack. You walk over to the rail and look out over the water, feeling the worn wood beneath your hands. The surface of the bay is like glass, broken only by the occasional jumping fish or the V-shaped wake of a pelican skimming just above the waves. In the distance, you can see other islands rising from the sea, their peaks shrouded in morning mist. This is one of the compensations of pirate life, the sheer beauty of the Caribbean. Even after months at sea, you never quite get used to the incredible blue of the water, the lush green of the tropical islands, the spectacular sunsets that paint the entire sky in shades of red and gold. It's a harsh beauty, hiding dangers at every turn, but beautiful nonetheless. The ship itself is showing its age. The Revenge was originally a Spanish merchantman, captured off the coast of Venezuela 8 months ago. She's a solid vessel, about 90 feet long, with 2 masts, and a crew of roughly 60 men. But years of hard use are beginning to show. The rigging needs constant repair, the sails are patched in a dozen places, and the hull requires daily pumping to keep the water out. Pirates don't have access to proper shipyards for major repairs. When something breaks, you fix it with whatever materials are at hand. U-rope spliced with different rope, canvas patches sewn over holes, iron bolts replaced with wooden pegs. The result is a ship that looks like a patchwork quilt, held together more by hope and skill than by proper materials. Captain Blackwood emerges from his cabin, and you automatically touch your forelock in acknowledgement. He's a tall man in his 40s, with greying hair tied back in a queue, and a beard that's more practical than fashionable. Unlike the fancily dressed pirate captains of legend, Blackwood wears the same rough clothing as his crew, distinguished only by the pair of pistols thrust through his belt, and the cutlass hanging at his side. "Morning, lads," he calls out, his voice carrying the authority of command, but without the harsh edge you remember from Navy officers. "Roberts, what's our situation with water and provisions?" The quartermaster approaches, consulting his journal. "Water for perhaps 10 days at current consumption, Captain. Food, well, that's more complicated. We've got hardtack enough for 2 weeks, but the salt pork is down to maybe a week's worth. The last of the fresh food went bad 3 days ago." You listen to this exchange while continuing your morning routine, hull checking the rigging near where you're standing, looking for any signs of wear or damage that might need attention. This is another difference from Navy life. Pirates learn to think like owners rather than mere crew members. Everyone has an interest in keeping the ship functional, because everyone shares in the profits. "Any word from our friends ashore?" Blackwood asks, nodding toward the jungle-covered coast. "Pedro sent word yesterday. Spanish convoy expected to pass through the Windward Passage within the week. 3 ships, possibly 4, bound from Cartagena to Havana." This news sends a ripple of interest through the men within earshot. After 6 weeks without a prize, the crew is getting restless. More importantly, the ship's supplies are running dangerously low. In the pirates' world, you either take prizes regularly, or you starve. "Get the men fed and ready," Blackwood decides. "We'll weigh anchor with the tide and make for the passage. Time to see what the Dons are carrying this season." The announcement of potential action brings the crew fully awake. There's nothing like the prospect of a prize to energize a ship full of pirates. Men move with renewed purpose as they go about their morning tasks, checking weapons, inspecting gear, talking in low voices about what they might find aboard a Spanish treasure ship. But first, there's breakfast to get through. You join the line of men queuing up at the galley, wooden bowls in hand. Cook ladles out a generous portion of burgoo meat. It's hot, filling and mercifully free of the weevils that infest the ship's hardtack. The salt pork mixed in is tough and heavily salted, but it provides protein and fat that your body needs for the hard work ahead. You settle down on the deck to eat, your back against the main mast, feeling the solid wood support your weight. Around you, other pirates are doing the same, the deck becoming an informal dining room as men find whatever space and comfort they can. The burgoo is actually quite good. Cook has a way with the limited ingredients available, adding wild herbs gathered during shore visits that give the porridge an unexpectedly pleasant flavor. The morning sun climbs higher, and you can feel its warmth beginning to penetrate the sea breeze. By noon it will be brutally hot, but for now the temperature is perfect. You take your time with the meal, savoring the warmth and the feeling of food in your stomach. In a life where comfort is rare, you learn to appreciate these small pleasures. As you eat, conversation flows around you. Pirates are great talkers, swapping stories, sharing rumors, planning what they'll do with their share of the next prize. Some talk of retiring to a small farm in Jamaica or the Carolinas. Others dream of one great score that will set them up for life. Most, if they're honest, know they'll probably die at sea, either in battle or from disease or accident. But that's a reality too distant to worry about on a beautiful Caribbean morning. Remember that Spanish ship we took off Tortuga last year? One man is saying, found 2 chests of silver reals hidden in the flour barrels. Captain's share alone was worth more than most men see in a lifetime. But remember the fever we picked up in Port Royal after that? Another responds, lost 8 good men, including Martinez. No amount of silver is worth dying for. This kind of practical fatalism is common among pirates. They know the risks: death in battle, hanging if captured, disease, storms, the dozen different ways the sea can kill a man. But they also know that for men like them, men without education or family connections or legitimate prospects, piracy offers the only real chance of escaping poverty and achieving something resembling independence. The anchor must be weighed, a back-breaking job that requires the entire crew working at the capstan, slowly turning the massive wooden wheel that brings up the heavy iron anchor and its chain. As you take your place at one of the capstan bars, you feel the familiar burn in your shoulders and back as you begin to push. The work is rhythmic, almost meditative. Push, step, round and round as the capstan slowly winds in the anchor chain. The other men sing an old sea chanty to keep time, their voices blending in the ancient call and response pattern that makes heavy work bearable. Heave away, my lads. Heave away, tomorrow we'll be far away. Heave away, my lads. Heave and pull one more turn, and then belay all. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with the rhythm of the work and the song, in through your nose as you position yourself, out through your mouth as you push against the bar. The repetitive motion and communal effort create a kind of working meditation, your mind free to wander while your body performs the familiar task. As the anchor comes up, other men are working to prepare the sails. The Revenge carries a complex array of canvas mainsail, foresail, topsails, jibs and staysails, each requiring careful adjustment to catch the wind properly. You've learnt to read the subtle signs that tell experienced sailors which sails to set and how to trim them for maximum efficiency. The morning breeze is light but steady from the east, perfect for leaving the anchorage and making way toward the open sea. As the last of the anchor chain comes aboard with a final clattering rush, you feel the ship begin to respond to her sails, the deck tilting slightly as she catches the wind and starts to move through the water. There's something magical about this moment when a sailing ship first gets underway. The sudden transition from static object to living creature, the way the hull cuts through the water with increasing confidence, the musical sound of wind in the rigging. Even after months at sea, you still feel a small thrill as the ship comes alive beneath your feet. Make sail, Captain Blackwood calls from the quarterdeck. Set the main topsail and flying jib. You're part of the crew assigned to the main mast, so you begin the long climb up the ratlines toward the main topsail yard. The rope ladder sways with the ship's motion, and you have to time your movements carefully to avoid being thrown off. Your hands are sure on the tarred rope, your feet finding the ratlines automatically even without looking down. 50 feet above the deck, the motion of the ship is magnified considerably. Each roll and pitch is more pronounced up here, and a careless move could send you plummeting to the deck or into the sea. But there's also an incredible sense of freedom aloft, with the endless expanse of the Caribbean stretched out in all directions. Working in concert with 3 other men, You loose the gaskets that hold the furled topsail, when help haul on the lines that drop the big square sail into position. Haul the canvas snaps and fills with wind, adding its power to the ship's forward motion. Below, other crew members are adjusting the lines that control the sail's angle, fine-tuning the set to extract maximum speed from the available breeze. The work aloft requires constant attention and perfect coordination. One man's mistake can result in injury or death for the whole crew working the sail. But there's also a deep satisfaction in the work, in being part of the complex machine that drives the ship through the water. Every line has a purpose, every sail contributes to the whole, and every man's effort matters. Coming down from aloft, you feel the familiar burn in your arms and legs from the climbing and the satisfaction of work well done. The ship is now making good speed through the water, her bow cutting a clean white wake as she heads toward the open Caribbean. The motion is different now. Instead of the gentle rolling at anchor, there's a purposeful drive forward, the rhythm of a ship under sail making way toward her destination. As the morning progresses, the ship settles into the routine of life at sea. Men take turns at the wheel, maintaining the course set by the captain. Others keep watch for other vessels, using the ship's single telescope to scan the horizon for any sign of potential prizes or threats. The carpenter makes his rounds, checking for any new leaks or damage that might have developed overnight. You're assigned to maintenance work, splicing rope that's beginning to fray. It's detailed work that requires attention but isn't physically demanding, perfect for a hot Caribbean morning. You settle into a comfortable spot in the shade of the mainsail with a length of 3-inch hemp rope that needs a new eye splice at one end. The work is rhythmic and soothing. Unlay the strands of the rope, tuck them through the standing line in the proper pattern, pull tight, repeat. Your fingers know the work so well you barely have to think about it, leaving your mind free to enjoy the simple pleasure of being at sea on a beautiful day. Around you, the ship continues its complex daily symphony. The wind in the rigging creates a constant musical backdrop, rising and falling with the gusts. Water chuckles along the hull as the bow cuts through the small waves. Somewhere a block creaks as it takes the strain of a working line. These sounds have become as familiar as your own breathing, the acoustic signature of a sailing ship at work. The sun climbs higher, and the heat begins to build. By 10 o'clock, working in direct sunlight becomes uncomfortable. Men seek shade where they can find it, and the pace of work slows to accommodate the rising temperature. This is another reality of Caribbean sailing. The heat can be as dangerous an enemy as any Spanish warship. You move your rope work to a spot in the shadow of the quarterdeck, feeling the relief as you escape the direct rays of the sun. The temperature difference is dramatic, perhaps 15 degrees cooler in the shade. You settle back against a convenient coil of rope, continuing your splicing while enjoying the relative comfort. From this position you can observe the daily routine of pirate life without being directly involved. It's remarkably similar to life aboard any sailing ship, the same tasks of maintenance and navigation, the same rhythms of watchkeeping and work. The popular image of pirates as anarchic rebels doesn't match the reality of shipboard life, which requires discipline and cooperation to function at all. The main difference is in the atmosphere. Where Navy ships run on fear and harsh discipline, pirate ships operate on a combination of mutual self-interest and genuine camaraderie. Men work hard because they know their lives depend on the ship's efficiency, not because they're afraid of the lash. Decisions are discussed rather than simply imposed from above. This doesn't mean pirate ships are democracies in the modern sense. When quick action is needed, in battle or during a storm, the captain's word is absolute law. But in the day-to-day running of the ship, There's more consultation and discussion than you'd find in any legitimate navy. Around noon, the heat becomes truly oppressive. The sun beats down from directly overhead, turning the deck into a furnace and making any metal fittings too hot to touch with bare skin. Men move slowly, conserving energy, seeking shade wherever possible. Even the lightest clothing becomes uncomfortable in this heat. Cook has rigged a canvas awning over his galley to provide some protection from the sun. Preparing meals in this heat is brutal work, standing over a fire when the ambient temperature is already near body heat. But the crew needs food, and there's no other way to cook it aboard ship. The midday meal is cold ship's biscuit, cheese and water. No one wants hot food in this heat, and Cook wisely avoids lighting his galley fire during the worst of the afternoon. You take your ration and find a spot in whatever shade you can find, eating slowly and drinking water to combat the dehydrating effects of the heat. Water discipline is crucial in this climate. The ship carries enough fresh water for perhaps 2 weeks at normal consumption, but in this heat, men need twice as much to avoid heat exhaustion. The daily water ration is carefully measured out by the quartermaster. 1 gallon per man per day, which must serve for drinking, cooking and minimal washing. You sip your water slowly, making it last. It's warm and has a slight taste of the wooden barrel it's been stored in, but it's precious beyond measure. Men have died for want of fresh water in the Caribbean, and every drop is rationed as carefully as gold. The afternoon passes slowly. Most non-essential work stops during the worst heat, and men find whatever shade and comfort they can. Some sleep, curled up in whatever shadow they can find. Others occupy themselves with small tasks that can be done sitting still, mending clothes, carving or playing dice games for small stakes. You continue working on your rope splice, the familiar motions helping to pass the time. The repetitive work is almost meditative, requiring just enough attention to keep your mind occupied without demanding intense concentration. Your breathing settles into a slow, steady rhythm as you work in through your nose, out through your mouth, letting each exhale carry away a little more tension. As the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the heat gradually becomes more bearable. A slight increase in the breeze helps too, providing some cooling as the air moves over your sweat-dampened skin. Men begin to stir from their afternoon lethargy, resuming the endless tasks of shipboard maintenance. You finish the rope splice and examine your work critically. The eye is neat and strong, properly tucked and faired. It will hold under strain and last for months of hard use. There's satisfaction in work well done, in contributing your skills to the ship's efficiency and safety. Evening brings some relief from the heat, though the temperature remains uncomfortably warm by any temperate standard. The sun sinks lower, painting the western sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. The Caribbean sunset is one of nature's great spectacles, and even after months at sea you still pause to appreciate its beauty. Supper is burgoo again, this time mixed with dried peas and a few precious onions from the ship's dwindling stores. Cook has managed to add some flavor with wild herbs collected during the last shore visit, and the result is actually quite tasty. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth and substance of the meal while watching the spectacular sunset paint the sky. As darkness falls, the ship's routine shifts to accommodate the night watches. Men are assigned to 4-hour watches throughout the night, ensuring that the ship is never left unattended. The night watch is responsible for maintaining course, watching for other vessels and handling any emergency that might arise. You're assigned to the middle watch midnight to 4 in the morning, traditionally considered the worst watch because it breaks up your sleep, but you don't mind it particularly. There's something peaceful about being on deck in the quiet hours before dawn, when the only sounds are the wind in the rigging and the water along the hull. Away from any land-based lights, the Caribbean night reveals stars in stunning profusion. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, and the familiar constellations that sailors use for navigation stand out clearly against the black void. Navigation by the stars is still more art than science in 1715. The ship carries a compass and an astrolabe for taking solar observations, but much of the navigator's skill comes from experience and intuition. Reading the sea, understanding weather patterns, knowing the landmarks that mark dangerous reefs or safe harbors. These skills take years to develop and can mean the difference between life and death. Going below to prepare for sleep, you're struck again by the contrast between the spacious beauty of the night sky and the cramped confines of the ship. The crew quarters are even more stifling now. After a day of Caribbean heat, and the air is thick with the smell of 60 unwashed men living in close proximity, you strip down to your undergarments and climb carefully into your hammock, feeling the familiar embrace of the rope netting. The ship's motion is more pronounced now that she's underway, a gentle rolling and pitching that takes some getting used to. But after months aboard, the motion has become as natural as breathing, a rhythmic lullaby that actually helps you sleep. The sounds of the ship at night are different from the day. No voices calling orders, no footsteps running on deck, just the constant creaking of the hull as it works in the seaway, the gentle rush of water along the sides, and the musical sound of wind in the rigging above. These sounds, which once seemed strange and disturbing, have become comforting in their familiarity. You settle into your hammock, feeling your body relax into the rope mesh. Your muscles are tired from the day's work, a pleasant fatigue that speaks of honest effort. The heat is still oppressive below deck, but exhaustion is stronger than discomfort. Your breathing naturally slows and deepens as you prepare for sleep. In the hammock next to you, another pirate is already snoring softly, his breathing deep and regular. Across the narrow space, someone is whispering prayers in Spanish. Many of the crew are former Spanish sailors who joined the pirates rather than face death or slavery. The mix of nationalities is typical of pirate crews, which often include English, Spanish, French, Dutch, and Portuguese sailors, along with escaped slaves and even the occasional Indian. This international character of pirate crews is one of the aspects of the life that you find appealing. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of national navies, pirate ships judge men by their skills and courage rather than their birth or nationality. A clever Spanish sailor can rise to quartermaster, a brave escaped slave can command respect, and a man's past matters less than his present contributions to the crew's success. You close your eyes and let the motion of the ship carry you towards sleep. The hammock sways gently with each roll, a motion that would be disturbing on land, but becomes soothing at sea. Your body has learned to relax completely, while still maintaining the slight tension necessary to stay in the hammock. A skill that took weeks to develop, but now feels natural. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The ship is heading toward the Windward Passage, where Spanish treasure ships pass on their way from the mainland colonies to Havana and ultimately to Spain. If the intelligence is correct, there will be an opportunity to take a prize within the next few days. The thought brings a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, the promise of wealth balanced against the risk of death or capture. But those concerns belong to tomorrow. For now, there's just the gentle motion of the ship, the familiar sounds of rigging and hull, and the gradual relaxation that comes with exhaustion. Your breathing slows further, becoming deep and regular. Each exhale seems to carry away a little more tension. Each inhale brings you closer to sleep. The wooden hull creaks and groans around you like a living thing, adjusting to the stresses of wind and wave. These sounds, which once seemed ominous, now provide a kind of wooden lullaby. The ship is your world now, your home and workplace and fortress all in one. For all its discomforts and dangers, it represents a kind of freedom that's impossible to find on land. Sleep comes gradually, creeping over you like a gentle tide. Your awareness of the ship's motion fades first, then the sounds of the rigging, then even your own breathing becomes automatic and unconscious. The last thing you're aware of is the gentle swaying of the hammock, rocking you like a baby's cradle as the Revenge continues her steady progress through the Caribbean night. You wake what feels like minutes later to someone shaking your shoulder. Middle watch, a voice whispers in the darkness. Time to relieve the deck. Groggily, you swing out of your hammock and pull on your clothes. The air below deck is still stifling, thick with the breath and sweat of sleeping men. Your body feels heavy with incomplete sleep, but duty calls. The middle watch waits for no man's comfort. On deck, the night air feels cool and fresh after the fetid atmosphere below. The stars shine with incredible brilliance in the clear Caribbean sky, providing enough light to see the basic features of the ship. The man you're relieving gives you a brief report. Course steady, wind holding from the east. No vessels sighted. Standard information passed from watch to watch. The next 4 hours pass slowly. Night watches are periods of enforced quiet, when the ship maintains her course while most of the crew sleeps. Your job is simply to stay alert, watch for changes in wind or weather, and call the captain if anything unusual occurs. There's something meditative about standing night watch. The darkness, the quiet, the steady rhythm of the ship moving through the water. It all combines to create a state of relaxed alertness that's almost peaceful. You find yourself settling into the ship's rhythm, your breathing synchronizing with the gentle roll and pitch of the hull. Around 2 in the morning, you're joined by Roberts, the quartermaster, making his rounds. He's a man of few words, but his presence is reassuring. Roberts has been at sea for over 20 years, first in the merchant service and then as a pirate. His experience shows in the way he moves around the ship in complete darkness, never missing a step or needing to grope for a handhold. Quiet night, he observes, settling against the rail beside you. You agree. Good sailing weather. Won't last, Roberts says with the certainty of long experience. Weather's brewing up to the east. Feel that change in the wind. You pause to concentrate on the breeze, trying to sense what the older man has noticed. After a moment, you think you can detect it. Miss a light shift in direction, perhaps a degree or two more southerly than it was earlier, and something different about the smell of the air. It carries a hint of something tropical and heavy, like the scent that comes off land during the rainy season. Storm, you ask quietly. Miss Eli's, his weathered face barely visible in the starlight. Not immediate, but coming. Maybe 2 days, maybe 3. We'll need to keep a weather eye. He straightens up from the rail. Captain will want to know come morning. Best to take whatever prize we can find and make for shelter before it hits. The prospect of a Caribbean storm adds urgency to the mission. You've experienced one major hurricane during your time aboard the Revenge, and it's not something you care to repeat. Winds that can strip a ship of her sails in minutes, waves the size of mountains, rain that falls like shot, and makes it impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. But for now, the night remains peaceful. This aboard and it remains peaceful. Roberts continues his rounds, and you return to the quiet contemplation that makes night watches bearable. The stars wheel slowly overhead, marking the passage of time in their ancient patterns. You pick out the North Star, barely visible this far south, and use it to check the ship's compass heading, still steady on course for the windward passage. The remaining hours of your watch pass without incident. The wind holds steady, the ship maintains her course, and the horizon remains empty of other vessels. As the eastern sky begins to show the first pale hint of dawn, you prepare to wake your relief and return to your hammock for a few more hours of sleep before the day begins in earnest. Below deck, the air has cooled slightly during the night, making the cramped quarters marginally more bearable. You strip off your clothes and climb back into your hammock, feeling the familiar embrace of the rope mesh. Your body is tired from the long watch, and sleep comes more easily this time. You dream fitfully of storms and Spanish ships, of chests full of silver and the crack of cannon fire. The dreams have a vivid quality that makes them feel almost real. The smell of gunpowder, the taste of fear in your mouth, the weight of a cutlass in your hand. These are the occupational dreams of pirates, born from experience and anticipation in equal measure. Dawn comes too soon, announced by the sound of feet on the deck above and the familiar calls of the day watch taking over. You wake reluctantly, your body protesting the abbreviated sleep, but there's no luxury of lying in aboard a working ship. Everyone has duties to perform, and the day begins whether you're ready for it or not. This morning brings a change in routine. Instead of the usual breakfast and maintenance work, Captain Blackwood calls all hands on deck for a council. This is one of the democratic traditions of pirate life. Major decisions are made by the entire crew rather than imposed from above. The men gather on the main deck in the early morning light, arranging themselves in a rough semicircle, facing the captain and his officers. There's an expectant energy in the group, the kind of tension that comes before important announcements. You find a spot near the main mast where you can see and hear clearly. Blackwood doesn't waste time with preliminaries. Lads, we've had word of a Spanish convoy passing through these waters. 3 ships, possibly 4, bound from Cartagena to Havana with the season's treasure. If our intelligence is correct, they'll be carrying silver from the mines, plus trade goods and supplies for the garrison in Cuba. A murmur of interest runs through the assembled crew. After 6 weeks without a prize, the prospect of Spanish silver is intoxicating. But you've been at this long enough to know that intelligence isn't always accurate, and Spanish convoys are usually well defended. The quartermaster has concerns about the weather. Blackwood continues, nodding toward Roberts. There's a storm building to the east, which means we'll need to move quickly. Take the prize and make for shelter before the blow hits. Roberts steps forward, consulting his journal. Based on the reports, the convoy should pass through the windward passage sometime in the next 2 days. If we position ourselves at Dead Man's Cay, we can intercept them as they come through the Narrows. Dead Man's Cay is a small island that sits astride the main shipping route through the windward passage. It's perfectly positioned for ambush, with deep water close to shore and numerous hiding places among the coral reefs. It's also notorious as a pirate's lair, which means any Spanish captain worth his salt will be extra alert when passing through those waters. The question before us, Blackwood says, is whether we take this chance or wait for easier prey. Spanish treasure ships are rich prizes, but they're also heavily armed and well defended. There's real risk involved. This is the moment when pirate democracy comes into play. According to the ship's articles, any decision involving significant risk must be put to a vote by the entire crew. Every man has a voice, from the newest recruit to the most senior officer. The debate that follows is surprisingly sophisticated. Men who can barely read or write demonstrate a keen understanding of tactics, weather patterns, and risk assessment. Some argue for taking the chance. The potential reward is enormous, and the ship's supplies are running dangerously low. Others advocate waiting for a safer target, pointing out that a failed attack could result in the loss of the ship and crew. Your share of a Spanish treasure ship could be enough to buy your way out of piracy entirely. Set yourself up with a small business or farm somewhere safe from the reach of the law. But Spanish warships carry enough firepower to blow the Revenge out of the water if the attack goes wrong. In the end, the vote is closer than you expected, but decisive enough to avoid controversy. 38 votes in favor of the attack, 22 against. The decision is made. The Revenge will attempt to intercept the Spanish convoy at Dead Man's Cay. With the decision made, the ship's routine shifts into preparation for battle. Weapons are checked and sharpened, ammunition is distributed, and the cannons are inspected and loaded. The transformation from peaceful merchant vessel to warship is remarkable to watch. Men who were joking and laughing over breakfast become grim-faced fighters preparing for potentially deadly action. Your role in battle has been established through previous actions. You're part of the boarding party, the men who will swing across to any prize ship and fight hand-to-hand to secure it. It's dangerous work that requires courage, skill, and a certain amount of luck, but it's also where the real fighting happens. You check your weapons carefully, a cutlass with a slightly nicked blade but good balance, a pair of pistols that you've loaded with care, and the long knife that every sailor carries. Each weapon is familiar in your hands, tools that could mean the difference between life and death in the coming fight. The ship's armourer, a taciturn Scotsman named MacDougall, moves among the crew checking weapons and distributing additional ammunition. He pauses when he reaches you, examining your pistols with a professional eye. "Flints are fresh?" he asks in his thick Highland accent. You nod, showing him the sharp pieces of flint that will strike the spark to fire the weapons. Pistols are notoriously unreliable in the damp Caribbean air, and a misfire at the wrong moment can be fatal. "Good lad," MacDougall grunts, moving on to the next man. "Keep your powder dry and your blade sharp." As the Revenge makes sail for Dead Man's Cay, the mood aboard becomes increasingly focused. The easy camaraderie of shipboard life gives way to the tension that always precedes action. Men speak in lower voices, move with more purpose, check and recheck their equipment with the nervous energy of fighters preparing for battle. The sailing to Dead Man's Cay takes most of the day, threading through the complex maze of reefs and small islands that characterizes this part of the Caribbean. Captain Blackwood relies on local knowledge gained through months of operating in these waters, following channels that aren't marked on any official chart. You're assigned to the rigging during the approach, helping to adjust the sails for maximum stealth. The less sail the ship shows, the less likely she is to be spotted by lookouts on passing vessels. It's delicate work, balancing the need for speed against the requirement for concealment. From your position aloft, you have an excellent view of the surrounding waters. The Caribbean stretches endlessly in all directions, a brilliant blue that shifts from turquoise in the shallows to deep indigo in the deeper channels. Small islands dot the seascape like emeralds scattered on blue silk, each one fringed with white sand beaches and crowned with lush tropical vegetation. Your eyes scan the horizon constantly, looking for the telltale flash of white canvas that would indicate an approaching ship. The Spanish convoy could appear at any time, and early warning could mean the difference between a successful ambush and a running fight, but the pirates are unlikely to win. Dead Man's Cay appears ahead as the afternoon sun begins its descent toward the western horizon. It's a small island, perhaps a mile long and half as wide, covered with scrub vegetation and surrounded by coral reefs that make navigation treacherous for anyone who doesn't know the local waters intimately. The Revenge drops anchor in a small bay on the island's leeward side. On the ransom play on the island's leeward side, hidden from the main shipping channel by a screen of mangroves and coral heads. From the sea, the ship is virtually invisible, just another shadow among the many that dot these reef-strewn waters. Captain Blackwood orders the sails furled and the ship secured for potentially quick departure. If the ambush fails or Spanish reinforcements arrive, the Revenge needs to be able to get underway immediately. Anchor springs are rigged to allow the ship to be turned quickly in any direction, and the best sailing crew stands ready to make sail at a moment's notice. As evening approaches, lookouts are posted on the island's highest points with telescopes and signal flags. Their job is to watch for the approaching convoy and alert the ship when targets are sighted. The waiting begins. Perhaps the most difficult part of any ambush. You're assigned to the evening watch aboard the ship, helping to maintain the pretense that this is just another anchorage. Pirates often pose as legitimate traders when in port, selling captured goods and resupplying their ships. To any casual observer, the Revenge appears to be doing exactly that. The sunset that evening is particularly spectacular, painting the western sky in shades of red and gold that reflect off the calm water of the anchorage. Under different circumstances, you might take time to appreciate the beauty of the scene. But tonight, your attention is focused on the eastern horizon, where Spanish sails might appear at any moment. Supper is cold rations, hardtack, cheese and water. No one wants to risk the smell of cooking smoke giving away the ship's position. You eat mechanically, your mind focused on the coming action. In a few hours, you might be fighting for your life against Spanish soldiers trained from childhood in the arts of war. As darkness falls, the ship settles into a state of silent alertness. Conversations are conducted in whispers, and any unnecessary movement is avoided. Even the ship's bell, normally used to mark the watches, is muffled to prevent its sound from carrying across the water. You find yourself a comfortable spot on deck, where you can rest while remaining instantly ready for action. Your weapons are close at hand, checked one final time in the dim light. Your breathing settles into the slow, deep rhythm that helps calm pre-battle nerves. The night passes slowly, marked only by the gentle lapping of waves against the hull and the occasional call of a night bird from the island. The moon is dark, which provides excellent concealment, but makes navigation more difficult for everyone, including the Spanish convoy. Around midnight, a signal comes from the lookouts on shore. Horse 3 flashes of a shuttered lantern repeated twice. Ship sighted to the southeast, still distant but heading in the right direction. The Spanish convoy is approaching right on schedule. The word passes quickly through the ship in whispers. Sails to the southeast. 3 ships, possibly 4, range approximately 10 miles. Captain Blackwood appears on deck, moving silently among the crew to ensure everyone is ready. His presence is reassuring. Whatever his faults, Blackwood is an experienced fighter who's led successful attacks on numerous Spanish vessels. "Remember the plan, lads," he whispers as he passes your position. "We wait until they're committed to the channel, then we strike fast and hard. No quarter asked or given until they surrender." The waiting continues, but now with a heightened sense of anticipation. Somewhere out there in the darkness, Spanish ships are approaching, their crews unaware of the danger waiting in the shadows. In a few hours, you'll know whether the intelligence was accurate, whether the ambush will succeed, whether you'll live to see another sunrise. You check your weapons one more time, more from nervousness than necessity. The pistols are loaded and primed, the cutlass loose in its sheath, the long knife secure in your belt. Everything is ready. Now there's nothing to do but wait and try to keep your nerves under control. The eastern sky is just beginning to show the first pale hint of dawn when the lookouts signal again. The Spanish convoy is entering the windward passage, 4 ships in line ahead formation. In the growing light, you can make out their silhouettes through the ship's telescope when your turn comes to look. 2 large galleons with their distinctive high sterns, a smaller frigate, and what appears to be a merchant vessel bringing up the rear. 4 ships, Roberts confirms quietly. 2 warships, a frigate, and a merchantman. The galleons will be heavily armed, but the merchant ship should be relatively easy prey. Blackwood makes the final tactical decision quickly. We'll take the merchant vessel first, then use her as a floating battery against the warships, quick and clean, before they can organize a proper defense. The plan is simple but effective. Pirate tactics rely on speed and surprise, rather than heavy firepower. Get in close, board quickly, and overwhelm the enemy before they can bring their superior numbers and armament to bear. As the Spanish ships draw closer, you can see them more clearly. The Spanish ships draw closer, you can see them more clearly. The lead galleon flies the Royal Spanish flag and appears to be a ship of the line with at least 40 guns. The second galleon is smaller but still formidable, probably carrying 30 guns or more. The frigate has the lean, fast lines of a purpose-built warship, while the merchant vessel appears to be a converted treasure ship, heavily laden but lightly armed. The Spanish formation is proceeding cautiously through the channel, aware of the dangers posed by coral reefs and hidden pirates. But their lookouts are scanning the horizon for approaching threats, not the shadows among the mangroves where the Revenge lies hidden. All hands prepare for action. Blackwood orders in a voice that carries just far enough to reach every man aboard. Remember your orders. We take the merchant vessel first and quickly. The crew moves with practiced efficiency, making final preparations for battle. Cannon are loaded with chain shot to disable the target's rigging. Small arms are distributed, and boarding axes are sharpened one last time. The transformation from hidden merchant vessel to predatory warship takes only minutes. You take your position with the boarding party, cutlass drawn and pistols ready. Your heart is beating faster now, pumping adrenaline through your system in preparation for the violence to come. Around you, other men show the same signs of pre-battle tension. Pale faces, quick movements, the tight grip of hands on weapons. The Spanish convoy draws steadily closer, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. Through the telescope, you can see figures moving on their decks, sailors going about their routine duties. In a few minutes, their peaceful morning will explode into chaos and violence. Stand by, Blackwood calls softly. Wait for my signal. The merchant vessel is now less than half a mile away, close enough to see individual figures on her deck. She's a treasure ship, all right. You can tell by the way she sits low in the water, heavy with cargo. If the intelligence is correct, her holds are filled with silver ingots bound for Spain. Now Blackwood shouts, and the Revenge springs into action. The anchor is slipped rather than weighed, allowing for immediate departure if necessary. Sails drop from their yards like huge wings unfolding, and the ship surges forward with startling speed. The Spanish lookouts finally spot the threat, but it's already too late to avoid action. The Revenge angles toward the Spanish merchant vessel, her bow aimed at the larger ship's quarter. At this range, the pirates' superior seamanship and intimate knowledge of local waters give them a decisive advantage. The Spanish ship tries to turn away, but she's too heavy and slow to escape. Fire, Blackwood orders, and the Revenge's starboard battery erupts in flame and smoke. The chain shot screams across the narrow gap between the ships, designed to destroy rigging rather than hull. The effect is devastating. The Spanish ship's main mast topples with a crash that can be heard across the water, taking most of her forward sails with it. Crippled and unable to maneuver, she becomes an easy target. Boarding party, stand ready. The captain shouts above the din of battle. The Revenge slides alongside the Spanish vessel with a grinding crash of timber against timber. Grappling hooks fly across the gap, securing the two ships together. The air fills with smoke from pistol shots, and the clash of steel on steel as the boarding begins. You leap across the narrow gap between the ships, cutlass in one hand and pistol in the other. The deck of the Spanish vessel is chaos. Sailors running in every direction, officers shouting contradictory orders, soldiers trying to form a defensive line. The Spanish crew outnumbers the boarders 2-1, but they're demoralized and disorganized. A Spanish soldier appears in front of you, his sword already drawn. You fire your pistol point blank, seeing him stagger backward with a look of surprise on his face. There's no time to reload. You draw your second pistol and continue forward, slashing with your cutlass at anyone who stands in your way. The fight is brief, but vicious. A Spanish resistance crumbles quickly under the pirates' coordinated assault. Within minutes, the ship's officers are calling for quarter, throwing down their weapons in surrender. The Spanish treasure ship is yours. There's no time to celebrate. The Spanish warships are already turning to engage, their guns running out as they prepare to recapture their consort. The Revenge needs to get clear before those heavy cannons can be brought to bear. Secure the prize, Blackwood shouts from the quarterdeck. Get her underway immediately. Half the boarding party remains aboard the captured vessel to sail her to safety, while the other half returns to the Revenge. You're among those ordered back to your own ship, leaping across the gap just as the grappling lines are cut. The Spanish treasure ship, now under pirate control, limps away toward the safety of the mangroves with her jury-rigged sails. The Spanish warships are closing fast, their gun ports open and cannons ready. The lead galleon is particularly impressive, Pazala, a massive ship of the line that dwarfs the Revenge in both size and firepower. In a straight fight, the pirates wouldn't stand a chance, but pirate tactics don't rely on straight fights. All sail, Blackwood orders. Get us out of here. The Revenge spreads her canvas like a bird taking flight, every scrap of sail drawing to catch the morning breeze. The ship heels over as she accelerates, her sharp bow cutting through the water with increasing speed. Behind you, the Spanish warships are trying to follow, but their heavier construction makes them slower in these light winds. The chase that follows tests every ounce of seamanship the pirate crew possesses, threading through coral reefs and shallow channels that the Spanish ships dare not attempt. The Revenge gradually increases her lead. The sound of cannon fire echoes across the water as the frustrated Spanish commanders fire long-range shots, but the range is too great for accuracy. By noon, the Spanish ships have given up the pursuit, turning back to escort their remaining vessels through the dangerous waters of the Windward Passage. The Revenge and her prize are safe, hidden once again among the countless islands and reefs that provide sanctuary for Caribbean pirates. The captured Spanish treasure ship proves to be everything the intelligence promised, and more. Her holds contain not just silver ingots, but also chests of Spanish gold coins, bales of precious woods, and barrels of costly spices. The total value is enormous, enough to make every man aboard wealthy by the standards of common sailors. The division of the booty follows the ship's articles exactly. Captain Blackwood receives 6 shares as commander, The officers receive 2 shares each, and every crew member gets 1 full share. Your portion comes to nearly 300 pieces of 8 in silver and gold, plus a small fortune in trade goods. It's more money than you've ever seen in one place. Mond, but there's no time for extended celebration. Robert's weather predictions are proving accurate. The storm is building faster than expected, and the Revenge needs to find secure shelter before it hits. The captured treasure ship is too damaged to weather a major blow, so her cargo is quickly transferred to the pirate vessel, and she's scuttled to prevent recapture. The next 2 days are spent in frantic preparation for the approaching hurricane. The Revenge sails to a hidden harbor on the coast of Cuba, a place known only to pirates and smugglers. Here, surrounded by mangroves and protected by coral reefs, the ship can ride out even the worst Caribbean storm. Hurricane preparations aboard a sailing ship are exhaustive and critical. Every piece of equipment that can be moved is taken below deck and secured. The cannons are double lashed to prevent them from breaking loose in heavy weather. All sails except storm canvas are removed and stowed below. The rigging is inspected and reinforced with additional lines. You work alongside the crew through the day and into the night, driven by the knowledge that your life depends on the thoroughness of these preparations. A hurricane can destroy a ship in minutes if anything goes wrong. A loose cannon can punch through the hull, a broken mast can hold the deck, a torn sail can cause the vessel to broach and capsize. The storm arrives with little warning, the wind going from moderate breeze to howling gale in the space of an hour. You're below deck when it hits, pressed against the ship's side by the extreme angle of heel as the Revenge fights to stay upright in the mountainous seas. The noise is indescribable. Mile wind shrieking through the rigging like a living thing, waves crashing over the deck with the force of avalanches, the constant groaning and creaking of the hull as it's twisted and strained by forces beyond imagination. The ship is completely at the mercy of the storm, despite all human efforts to control her. You lie in your hammock, braced against the violent motion, trying not to think about the enormous waves that must be breaking over the deck above. Every few minutes, water cascades down through the hatch covers, soaking everything below. The air is thick with spray and humidity, making breathing difficult. The hurricane lasts for 18 hours of continuous terror, as the ship fights for survival against the most powerful force in nature. Men who faced Spanish cannon without flinching are reduced to whimpering prayers as the storm batters the vessel. There's nothing to do but endure and hope that the preparations will prove adequate. When the wind finally begins to subside, the silence seems almost unnatural after hours of continuous roaring. Gradually, men begin to emerge on deck to assess the damage. The Revenge has survived, but barely in her main mast is cracked. Several sails are blown to ribbons, and the deck is scoured clean of everything that wasn't nailed down. But she's afloat, and that's what matters. In the clear air after the storm, you can see the wreckage of less fortunate vessels scattered along the shore. Broken masts, torn sails, and pieces of hull that tell the story of ships that didn't survive the night. The weeks that follow are spent in repairs and recovery. The Revenge limps to Nassau, the unofficial capital of the pirate republic that exists in the Bahamas. Here, surrounded by dozens of other pirate vessels, the ship can be properly repaired and resupplied. Nassau in 1715 is unlike anywhere else on Earth. A functioning city controlled entirely by pirates and operating outside the law of any nation. The harbor is filled with ships flying the black flag, from small sloops to captured ships of the line. The streets are lined with taverns, brothels, and shops that cater to the needs of men who live by violence and theft. Your share of the Spanish treasure allows you to live well during the stay in Nassau. Also, as you rent a room in a proper inn for the first time in months, sleep in a real bed with clean sheets, and eat meals that don't come from a ship's galley. The simple luxury of privacy and comfort feels almost decadent after the cramped conditions aboard ship, but pirate life has its own rhythms, and after a few weeks ashore, you find yourself growing restless. The Revenge has been repaired and resupplied, her crew recovered from the ordeal of the hurricane. Captain Blackwood is already planning the next cruise, studying charts and gathering intelligence about Spanish shipping. The life of a Caribbean pirate is one of extremes, periods of intense danger and hardship, alternating with times of relative luxury and ease. You've learned to accept both aspects, understanding that the risks make the rewards possible, and that freedom always comes at a price. One evening, as you sit in a Nassau tavern, nursing a mug of rum and watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of gold, you reflect on the strange path that brought you to this life. A pressed man in the Royal Navy, then a pirate in the Caribbean. Neither choice was really yours, but you've made the best of the circumstances fate provided. The tavern around you is filled with men who've made similar choices, driven by poverty, persecution, or simple desperation to live outside the law. They're not the romantic figures of legend. Most are scarred, weathered, and prematurely aged by hard living, but they're also free in a way that few men ever experience, masters of their own fate as long as their luck and skill hold out. Tomorrow the Revenge will sail again, heading back to the hunting grounds where Spanish treasure ships ply their trade routes. There will be new dangers to face, new prizes to take, new storms to weather. The cycle will continue until death, capture, or rare good fortune provides an end to the pirate's life. But tonight, with rum warming your belly and Spanish gold in your pocket, the future seems full of possibility. The Caribbean stretches endlessly beyond the harbor, a blue highway leading to adventure and fortune for those bold enough to seek it. The sun sinks lower, painting the water in brilliant colors that remind you why you came to love this dangerous life, despite all its hardships. You finish your rum and make your way back to the inn, walking slowly through the narrow streets of Nassau. Pirates call out greetings from doorways, their voices carrying the accents of a dozen different nations. Music drifts from open windows, mixing with the sound of waves on the beach and the distant tolling of a ship's bell. Your room at the inn is small but clean, with a real bed and a window that looks out over the harbor. You undress slowly, appreciating the simple luxury of privacy and quiet. Outside, Nassau continues its nightly revelry, but the sounds seem distant and unimportant. Lying in the unfamiliar softness of a real bed, you listen to the gentle sound of waves lapping against the shore. It's different from the constant motion of a ship at sea, but no less soothing in its own way. Your body, accustomed to the cramped confines of a hammock, gradually relaxes into the mattress. Sleep comes easily after the exhaustion of recent weeks. Your dreams are filled with Spanish gold and Caribbean sunsets, with the crack of sails filling with wind and the salt smell of the open ocean. In your dreams, you're always sailing towards some distant horizon, always seeking the next prize or the next adventure. But even in sleep, part of your mind remains alert to the sounds of the night. A lifetime of danger has taught you never to relax completely, never to trust entirely in safety or security. The pirate's life demands constant vigilance, and old habits die hard even in the relative comfort of Nassau. Morning comes with the sound of gulls crying over the harbor and the distant ringing of ships' bells as vessels prepare for sea. You wake refreshed but already thinking of the Revenge and the next cruise. The comforts of shore life are pleasant, but they're not your real home anymore. that lies on the deck of a ship under full sail, with the endless Caribbean stretching to all horizons. You dress quickly and make your way down to the harbor, where the morning routine of a pirate port is already underway. Ships are taking on supplies, crews are saying farewell to shore companions, and the whole waterfront buzzes with the activity of preparation for sea. The Revenge lies at anchor among the other pirate vessels, her new mast and fresh rigging making her look almost like a different ship. Captain Blackwood is already aboard, consulting with Roberts about the next cruise. When he sees you approaching, he waves you over. "Ready for sea, lad?" he asks with a grin that shows several missing teeth. You nod, feeling the familiar mixture of anticipation and anxiety that always comes before sailing. "Aye, Captain. When do we weigh anchor?" "With the evening tide," Blackwood replies. Spanish convoy reported off Martinique, bound for Vera Cruz with a cargo of silver. Should be perfect hunting if we can intercept them. The prospect of another prize brings a surge of excitement. Despite all the dangers and hardships, this life has gotten into your blood. The freedom, the camaraderie, the constant possibility of sudden wealth. It's addictive in a way that shore life can never match. You spend the day making final preparations, saying farewell to Nassau for what might be the last time. The Pirate Republic is under increasing pressure from European navies, and many predict it won't last much longer. But for now, it remains a unique haven, where men like you can live outside the laws and constraints of civilized society. As evening approaches, the Revenge prepares for sea. The crew assembles on deck, their faces showing the familiar mixture of excitement and apprehension that comes before every cruise. Some are new men, recruited during the stay in Nassau to replace those lost to disease, accident, or Spanish bullets. Others are veterans who've sailed with Blackwood for years. The anchor comes up to the sound of a sea chanty, the crew's voices blending in the ancient rhythm that makes heavy work bearable. The sails drop and fill with the evening breeze, and the ship begins to move through the water with gathering speed. Standing at the rail as Nassau falls away behind you, you feel the familiar peace that comes with being at sea again. The land-based concerns and complications fade away, replaced by the simple clarity of life aboard ship. Here your world is bounded by the horizon in all directions, and your destiny is as limitless as the ocean itself. The Caribbean evening is particularly beautiful, with the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. Dolphins play in the ship's bow wave, their sleek bodies cutting through the water with effortless grace. Flying fish burst from the surface like silver arrows, gliding for dozens of yards before disappearing back into the sea. As night falls and the stars appear, you settle into the familiar rhythm of shipboard life. Watch schedules are set, course is laid for the interception point, and the ship settles into the steady routine of a vessel underway. Straws, the steady routine of a vessel underway. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and new opportunities, but tonight there's just the peaceful movement of the ship through the dark water. You make your way below to the crew quarters, where your hammock waits in its familiar position. The space seems almost comfortable now. After the luxury of the Nassau Inn, you've grown accustomed to the close quarters and shared life of a ship's crew. This is your world now, for better or worse. Settling into your hammock, you feel the familiar embrace of the rope mesh. Your body automatically adjusts to the ship's motion, balancing and swaying with the gentle roll of the hull. Around you, other pirates are preparing for sleep, their quiet conversations gradually fading as exhaustion takes hold. The sounds of the ship at night provide a soothing backdrop. The rush of water along the hull, the creak of rigging adjusting to wind shifts, the distant sound of the helmsman calling out course corrections. These noises, once strange and disturbing, have become as familiar as a lullaby. Your breathing naturally slows and deepens as you prepare for sleep. The motion of the hammock is hypnotic, rocking you gently with each movement of the ship. Your muscles relax, releasing the tensions of the day, and your mind begins to drift toward the peaceful realm of sleep. Tomorrow will bring whatever the Caribbean has in store: Spanish ships to fight, prizes to take, or perhaps just another day of sailing through the endless blue waters. But those concerns belong to the future. For now, there's just the gentle motion of the ship, the familiar sounds of rigging and hull, and the gradual descent into restful sleep. The Revenge continues her course through the Caribbean night, carrying you and your shipmates toward whatever adventures await. The pirate's life continues its eternal cycle of danger and reward, hardship and freedom, always sailing toward the next horizon where fortune might be waiting. Your eyes close naturally as sleep approaches, your breathing becoming deep and regular. The hammock sways gently with the ship's motion, rocking you like a cradle as consciousness gradually fades. In your dreams, you're always sailing, always free, always seeking the next adventure on the endless Caribbean Sea. Sleep, when it comes, is deep but fitful. Your dreams are filled with the sounds and sensations of shipboard life, the creak of rigging, the splash of waves, the gentle sway that has become as natural as breathing. In your sleeping mind, you're always at sea, always sailing towards some distant horizon where adventure and fortune wait. But even in the deepest sleep, part of your consciousness remains alert to the ship's rhythm. It's a survival skill learned through months of danger, the ability to sense changes in the vessel's motion or the crew's activity that might signal trouble. Tonight, that watchfulness serves you well. You wake gradually, pulled from sleep not by any loud noise, but by a subtle change in the ship's atmosphere. Something has shifted during the night. You can feel it in the way the Revenge moves through the water, hear it in the hushed urgency of voices somewhere above. Your body tells you it's still deep night, hours before dawn, but the ship is more active than she should be at this hour. Rolling quietly out of your hammock, you pull on your clothes in the dim light, filtering down from the deck above. Around you, other men are doing the same, all of them moving with the careful quietness that comes from years of living in close quarters. Whatever has happened, it requires stealth rather than open action. On deck, the situation becomes clear immediately. Robert stands at the rail with a telescope, studying something in the distance. Captain Blackwood is beside him, his face set in the grim expression he wears when making difficult decisions. The dawn light is just beginning to reveal the horizon, and there, silhouetted against the pale sky, are the masts and sails of ships. Spanish patrol, Roberts murmurs as you approach quietly. 2 frigates, moving this way. They must have gotten word about the convoy attack. You feel your stomach tighten at this news. Spanish naval patrols are a very different proposition from merchant vessels or even armed treasure ships. These are purpose-built warships with experienced crews and the firepower to blow the Revenge out of the water in a straight fight. Blackwood takes the telescope and studies the approaching ships for long moments. You can almost see him calculating distances, wind speeds, and options in his head. Finally, he lowers the glass and turns to the assembled crew. Lads, we've got Spanish warships bearing down on us. 2 frigates, both bigger and better armed than we are. We can try to run, but they've got the weather gauge and fresh crews. Or we can try to bluff our way through mystify Spanish colors and hope they take us for one of their own merchantmen. The choice is a difficult one. Running means a stern chase that could last for hours, with the very real possibility of being overtaken and forced into a hopeless battle. But the bluff is equally dangerous. If the Spanish captains become suspicious, the Revenge will find herself caught between two warships with no chance of escape. What's the vote? Someone calls from the back of the group. Blackwood shakes his head. No time for a proper council. This is a command decision. We're going to try the bluff. He turns to the boatswain. Spanish colors, and make it quick. Get every man below who doesn't belong on a merchant crew. The rest of you, look busy but not too alert. The transformation is remarkable to watch. In minutes, the Revenge changes from a predatory pirate vessel to an innocent merchantman going about her lawful business. The Spanish flag breaks out from the ensign's staff. Weapons disappear below deck, and the crew spreads out to perform routine maintenance tasks that any merchant vessel might be conducting. You're one of the men ordered below, since your younger age and obvious fitness mark you as potentially suspicious to naval observers. Crammed into the gun deck with 30 other pirates, you wait in tense silence as the Spanish frigates approach. Through the gun ports you can see glimpses of the warships as they draw closer. Sleek, deadly vessels built for speed and combat. The minutes stretch endlessly. As the Spanish ships close the distance, you can hear voices on deck above, but the words are indistinct. Blackwood will be playing the role of a Spanish merchant captain, using his knowledge of Spanish customs and language to maintain the deception. But if the naval officers decide to board for a closer inspection, finally, after what feels like hours but is probably only 20 minutes, you hear the sound of sails being trimmed and the ship's motion changing slightly. The Spanish frigates are continuing on their patrol course, apparently satisfied that the Revenge is exactly what she appears to be. The relief is palpable as the crew gradually returns to deck. The Spanish warships are already hull down on the horizon, continuing their search for pirates in other areas. The bluff has worked, or it's a reminder of how precarious the pirate's existence really is. That was closer than I like, Roberts mutters, stowing his telescope. Words getting out about our activities. The Dones are taking this personally now. Blackwood nods grimly. All the more reason to make this next cruise profitable. If we're going to be hunted like wolves, we might as well have something to show for it. The encounter with the Spanish patrol changes the mood aboard the ship. The easy confidence of the past few days gives way to a more cautious awareness of the dangers surrounding you. The Spanish authorities are taking piracy seriously now, committing real resources to hunting down the men who prey on their shipping. But life aboard ship must continue regardless of external threats. The daily routine of maintenance, navigation and watchkeeping goes on, punctuated by the constant search for potential prizes. The Caribbean is vast, and somewhere in its blue expanses, Spanish merchantmen are carrying the wealth that makes piracy profitable. 3 days after the encounter with the patrol, that patience is rewarded. The lookout's cry of "sail ho" brings every man on deck, squinting toward the horizon, where a distant speck of white canvas marks another vessel's presence. Through the telescope, the stranger resolves into a Spanish merchant ship of moderate size, sailing alone and apparently unaware of the Revenge's presence. She's the type of vessel that might carry anything from trade goods to passengers, to a small treasure shipment. Exactly the kind of prize that pirate captains dream of. What do you make of her? Blackwood asks Roberts, who's studying the ship through the glass. Spanish built, certainly, probably about our size, maybe a bit smaller. Can't see any gun ports from this angle, so she's likely lightly armed. Flying merchant colors and making good speed toward Havana. The tactical situation is favorable for an attack. The Revenge has the wind gauge, allowing her to choose the terms of engagement. The Spanish ship is isolated, with no other vessels visible on the horizon to provide assistance. Most importantly, she shows no signs of being aware that she's being stalked. All hands, Blackwood calls, clear for action. The ship transforms once again, this time from peaceful merchantman to predatory warship. Weapons appear as if by magic: Morse cutlasses, pistols, boarding axes, and the wicked pikes used for close quarters fighting. The cannons are cast loose and loaded, their crews standing ready at the guns. You take your position with the boarding party, checking your weapons one final time. The familiar pre-battle ritual helps calm your nerves, the weight of steel in your hands, the reassuring presence of your shipmates, the knowledge that you've done this before and survived. The chase begins as the Revenge changes course to intercept the Spanish vessel. For a time it appears the merchantman hasn't noticed the pursuit. She continues on her original heading, maintaining the same leisurely pace that suggests a routine voyage rather than a flight from danger. But Spanish lookouts aren't blind, and eventually the alarm is raised aboard the merchant ship. You can see the sudden burst of activity on her decks as her crew realizes they're being pursued by a pirate vessel. Her course changes abruptly as she tries to run for the safety of the nearest Spanish port. The chase that follows tests both ships' sailing qualities and their crew's seamanship. The Spanish vessel proves to be faster than expected, her clean hull and efficient sail plan giving her a slight edge in speed. But the Revenge has the advantage of an experienced crew and intimate knowledge of local waters. For 2 hours, the pursuit continues across the sparkling Caribbean waters. The gap between the ships narrows gradually as the pirate vessel's superior handling begins to tell. You can see individual figures moving on the Spanish ship's deck now, and the desperation in their movements as they realize escape is becoming impossible. She's going to fight, Roberts observes, studying the merchant vessel through his telescope. See how they're clearing their decks and running out what guns they have. Indeed, the Spanish ship is preparing for battle rather than surrender. Her few cannons, or perhaps 6 small guns, are being readied for action. It's a brave decision, but probably a futile one. The Revenge carries twice as many guns and has a crew experienced in the brutal realities of ship-to-ship combat. Good for them, Blackwood says approvingly. I respect courage, even in an enemy. We'll give them a proper fight before we take their cargo. The final approach is a masterpiece of tactical sailing. Blackwood brings the Revenge up on the Spanish ship's quarter, positioning his vessel to rake the enemy's deck with cannon fire while staying out of the arc of most of her guns. It's the classic pirate maneuver, using superior seamanship to gain an overwhelming tactical advantage. Fire as you bear, Blackwood shouts, and the Revenge's starboard battery erupts in flame and thunder. The effect on the Spanish ship is devastating. Chain shot tears through her rigging, bringing down her foremast in a tangle of canvas and rope. Round shot punches through her hull, sending splinters flying like deadly arrows. In seconds, her ordered deck becomes a scene of chaos and destruction. But the Spanish crew doesn't surrender immediately. Their few guns reply gamely, sending iron balls whistling past the Revenge's rigging. One shot punches through the pirate ship's main sail, leaving a neat round hole that will need patching later. Another splashes into the sea just short of the hull, sending up a geyser of spray that soaks the gun crews. Again, Blackwood orders, and the Revenge's guns roar out a second time. This broadside breaks the Spanish resistance. With her mainmast gone, and her deck swept by grapeshot, the merchant vessel's few remaining crew members throw down their weapons and call for quarter. The brief but violent action is over, leaving the Revenge victorious and her opponent a floating wreck. Boarding party away. The captain shouts, and you leap leap across the gap between the ships with your shipmates. The deck of the Spanish vessel tells the story of the brief battle. Splinters from the cannon fire have turned the planking into a forest of wooden spikes. Bodies lie scattered where grapeshot found its mark, and the survivors huddle together near the mainmast, their faces showing the shock of men who've just experienced the raw violence of naval warfare. But there's no time for sympathy in the pirates' trade. While some of the boarding party secure the prisoners and tend to the wounded, others begin the systematic search for cargo that makes these attacks profitable. The ship's manifest, found in the captain's cabin, reveals a mixed cargo of considerable value: silver ingots, trade goods, and a small chest of gold coins intended for the Spanish garrison in Havana. All's not a treasure ship, Roberts reports to Blackwood, but a profitable prize nonetheless. The silver alone should bring a good price in Nassau. The transfer of cargo takes most of the afternoon, with pirates forming a human chain to pass valuable items from the captured ship to the Revenge. The Spanish vessel is too badly damaged to be worth keeping as a prize, so only her most valuable cargo is removed before she's scuttled. As the captured ship settles slowly beneath the Caribbean waves, you feel the familiar mixture of satisfaction and melancholy that follows every successful attack. The silver and gold now filling the Revenge's hold represent security and freedom for every man aboard, but it's been bought with violence and the destruction of other men's livelihoods. Such philosophical concerns are luxuries that pirates can rarely afford, however. The Spanish authorities will respond to this attack just as they did to the convoy raid, sending more patrols to hunt down the perpetrators. The Revenge needs to be far from this area before those hunters arrive. The next week passes in cautious sailing as the pirate ship works her way back toward friendly waters. The route takes you through some of the most beautiful seascape in the Caribbean chains of Emerald Islands, rising from azure waters, hidden bays where crystalline streams tumble down from jungle-covered mountains, coral reefs that glow like underwater gardens in the tropical sun. But beauty can be deceptive in these waters. Every island might hide a Spanish patrol. Every distant sail could belong to a warship hunting pirates. The constant vigilance required is exhausting, keeping nerves on edge and preventing the crew from fully enjoying their recent success. Your watch schedule during this period includes more time aloft, serving as lookout in the crow's nest, high above the deck. From this vantage point, you can see for miles in every direction, scanning the horizon for any sign of threat or opportunity. The work is peaceful but demanding, requiring constant attention and the ability to distinguish between innocent merchant traffic and potentially dangerous warships. The view from the masthead is spectacular on clear days. The Caribbean stretches endlessly in all directions, a blue highway connecting dozens of tropical islands. Schools of dolphins race alongside the ship, their sleek bodies cutting through the water with effortless grace. Flying fish burst from the waves like silver arrows, gliding for hundreds of yards before disappearing back into the sea. But the beauty comes with constant reminders of danger. Distant sails that might belong to Spanish patrol vessels require careful observation and reporting. Changes in weather patterns could indicate approaching storms that might catch the ship in dangerous waters. Even the behavior of seabirds provides clues about hidden reefs or approaching squalls. During one particularly beautiful sunset watch, as you scan the horizon from your perch 50 feet above the deck, you reflect on the strange life you've chosen. A year ago you were a pressed man in the Royal Navy, dreaming only of survival until the end of your enforced service. Now you're a free man sailing the Caribbean, with Spanish gold in your pocket and the wind in your hair. The transformation hasn't been without cost. You've killed men in battle, participated in attacks that left innocent sailors dead or wounded, and chosen a life that puts you forever outside the law of civilized nations. But you've also experienced a kind of freedom that few men ever know, the liberty to choose your own course, to share in collective decisions, and to reap the rewards of your own courage and skill. As the sun sinks toward the western horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red, you call down the day's final report to the deck below. No sails sighted, weather holding fair course steady for Nassau. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and new decisions, but tonight the Caribbean is peaceful, and the Revenge sails safely through friendly waters. Coming down from aloft as your watch ends, you feel the familiar satisfaction of duty completed. Your eyes are tired from hours of constant scanning, but you've earned the rest that comes with being relieved. The ship continues her course through the gathering darkness, guided by stars that have served as navigational aids for centuries. Men gather in small groups to share meals, tell stories, or play dice games for small stakes. The captured Spanish silver has made everyone optimistic about the future, but pirate fortunes can change quickly, and wise men don't count their wealth until they're safely ashore. You join a group of your messmates around a small table made from a sea chest, sharing a meal of salt pork and hardtack supplemented with some of the Spanish wine taken in the recent prize. The wine is good quality, much better than the rough rum that usually serves as the crew's alcoholic ration. It's one of the small luxuries that make the pirate's life bearable. Tonight's topics include speculation about Spanish patrol patterns, memories of past prizes, and plans for spending prize money once the ship reaches Nassau. The mix of languages, English, Spanish, Portuguese and French, creates a polyglot atmosphere that's typical of Caribbean pirate crews. Remember that Portuguese slaver we took off Barbados last year? One man is saying, 200 slaves in the hold, poor devils chained like animals. Captain gave them the choice, join the crew, or be set free on the nearest island. Most of them chose freedom. Another adds, can't say I blame them. After what they'd been through, even piracy probably looked too much like their old bondage. This touches on one of the more complex aspects of pirate life, the relationship with slavery that dominates Caribbean society. Many pirate crews include escaped slaves who found greater freedom under the black flag than they ever knew in legitimate society. But pirates also occasionally capture slave ships, creating moral dilemmas that don't have easy answers. You ask, genuinely curious. Those that survived the fight, we set ashore with the freed slaves, figured they deserved each other. The speaker grins grimly, though I heard later that most of the slavers didn't make it far into the jungle. The freedmen had some settling of accounts to do. As the evening progresses, the wine and the gentle motion of the ship combine to create a peaceful atmosphere. Men who faced death together in recent battles share stories and songs that help bond the crew together. There's genuine camaraderie here, forged through shared danger and mutual dependence. You contribute your own stories to the evening's entertainment, pals of your pressed service in the Royal Navy, the brutal conditions that drove you to piracy, and some of the more memorable actions you've participated in since joining the Revenge. Your experiences aren't unique, but they're yours, and in the sharing they become part of the crew's collective memory. As the night advances, men gradually disperse to their hammocks or to stand the night watches. You're assigned to the morning watch, when it's 4 to 8 a.m. in, which means you can sleep through the night for once. It's a luxury you've learned not to take for granted, since watch schedules are constantly rotating and unbroken sleep is rare aboard a working ship. Preparing for bed in the cramped crew quarters, you go through the familiar routine of stowing your clothes and weapons within easy reach. Pirates sleep lightly, and must be ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Your cutlass hangs from a hook beside your hammock. Your pistols are wrapped in oiled cloth to protect them from the ship's dampness, and your sea bag contains everything else you own in the world. After months of practice, you've learned to find comfort in this unconventional bed, appreciating the way it sways with the ship's motion rather than fighting against it. The hammock has become a symbol of your new life. Not adaptable, practical, and surprisingly comfortable, once you learn to work with it rather than against it. The sounds of the ship at night provide a familiar soundtrack for sleep. Water chuckles along the hull as the bow cuts through the gentle waves. Rigging creaks and sighs as it adjusts to minor wind shifts. Somewhere above, the night watch moves quietly about their duties, checking course and keeping lookout for other vessels. Your breathing naturally slows and deepens as fatigue overtakes the excitement of the day's events. The Spanish prize, the successful escape from patrol areas, the promise of profit once the cargo is sold, all of these fade into the background as sleep approaches. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and decisions, but tonight there's just the peaceful motion of the ship and the gradual descent into unconsciousness. In your dreams, you're sailing through an endless Caribbean populated by Spanish treasure ships that surrender without fighting and storms that always blow fair. It's a pirate's paradise where every cruise brings profit and no one ever dies in battle. The dreams have the vivid quality that comes from wine and exhaustion, more real than reality while they last. But even in sleep, part of your mind remains alert to the ship's rhythm and the sounds of the night. Years of danger have trained you to wake instantly at any unusual noise or change in the vessel's motion. The pirate's life demands constant vigilance, and that vigilance becomes as automatic as breathing. The Caribbean night continues around the sleeping ship, filled with its own mysteries and dangers. Other vessels move through these waters. Spanish patrols hunting pirates, merchant ships carrying valuable cargoes, and perhaps other pirate vessels pursuing their own predatory missions. But for now, the Revenge sails peacefully through the darkness, her crew resting after another successful day in the dangerous but profitable business of piracy. Dawn comes gradually, announced by the gradual lightening of the eastern sky and the familiar sounds of the day watch taking over from their nighttime counterparts. You wake naturally as your internal clock, calibrated by months of ship routine, tells you that your watch begins in a few minutes. Dressing quickly in the dim light, you make your way topside to relieve the night lookouts. The morning air is cool and fresh after the close atmosphere below deck, carrying the clean scent of salt water and the faint perfume of distant tropical flowers. The sea around the ship is calm with just enough wind to keep the sails drawing properly. Your watch station this morning is at the bow, where you can observe the ship's course and watch for any changes in weather or sea conditions. It's peaceful duty that allows your mind to wander while your eyes automatically scan the horizon for potential threats or opportunities. The sunrise that follows is spectacular, even by Caribbean standards. The eastern sky explodes in brilliant shades of orange, red, and gold that reflect off the calm water like a mirror. For a few minutes, the entire world seems to be painted in fire, transforming the mundane seascape into something magical and otherworldly. As the sun climbs higher, the colors fade to the more familiar blues and greens of a Caribbean morning. The temperature begins to rise, promising another hot day under the tropical sun. But for now, in the cool hours after dawn, working on deck is a pleasure rather than an ordeal. Captain Blackwood appears for his morning inspection, moving around the ship with the practiced eye of an experienced seaman. He checks the set of the sails, examines the rigging for signs of wear, and consults with the helmsman about course and weather conditions. It's the daily routine that keeps any sailing ship functioning properly. "Morning, lads," he calls to your watch as he passes. "Fine day for sailing, keep a sharp lookout. We're getting close to shipping routes, and there might be prizes about." The reminder sends a ripple of interest through the watch. After the success of the recent prize, the crew is eager for more action. But you've also learned to be cautious about such optimism. The Caribbean can be empty of targets for weeks at a time, and disappointed expectations can lead to dangerous risks. As your watch progresses, the ship settles into the familiar rhythm of a vessel underway in fair weather. Men go about their various duties, maintaining rigging, holystoning the deck, checking the ship's stores and equipment. The routine is soothing in its predictability, providing structure and purpose to the long hours at sea. Around mid-morning, that routine is interrupted by the lookout's call from the masthead. "Sail ho, 3 points off the starboard bow." Every man on deck immediately focuses his attention in the indicated direction, squinting against the bright tropical sun to make out the distant speck of canvas. Through the ship's telescope, the stranger resolves into what appears to be a merchant vessel of moderate size, sailing alone and apparently unaware of the Revenger's presence. "What do you make of her?" Blackwood asks Roberts, who's studying the ship through the glass. "Looks like another Spanish merchantman," the quartermaster replies, after careful observation. "Hull similar size to yesterday's prize, probably carrying trade goods between the islands. Hull so visible, and she's making a leisurely pace. The tactical situation is favorable for an attack, but Blackwood hesitates. 2 prizes in as many days would be unusually good fortune, but it would also increase the risk of Spanish retaliation. Every attack brings more attention from naval patrols, and there's wisdom in knowing when to stop pressing your luck." "What's the crew's feeling?" he asks, looking around at the assembled men. The response is mixed. Some argue for taking the prize while the opportunity exists. The ship's supplies are still low despite the recent capture, and Spanish silver is always welcome. Others counsel caution, pointing out that repeated attacks in the same area will bring concentrated Spanish attention that could prove dangerous. In the end, Blackwood makes the decision that marks him as an experienced captain rather than a reckless adventurer. "We let this one go," he announces. 2 prizes in 2 days is enough to satisfy any crew, and I'd rather sail away rich than fight our way out poor." But the veterans understand the wisdom in Blackwood's choice. The Caribbean will provide other opportunities, and a cautious pirate lives longer than a greedy one. The Spanish merchantman continues on her course, unaware of how close she came to attack. Watching her peaceful progress toward whatever destination she's bound for, you reflect on the strange nature of pirate life. This constant balance between aggression and restraint, between the need for profit and the requirement for survival. As the distant ship disappears over the horizon, the Revenge continues her own course toward Nassau and the safety of the Pirate Republic. The next few days pass uneventfully, filled with the routine maintenance and watchkeeping that occupies most of a sailor's time. The weather holds fair, the wind steady, and the horizon empty of both threats and opportunities. But as Nassau's familiar landmarks come into view, you feel the satisfaction that comes with a successful cruise. Either ship's hold contains enough Spanish silver and trade goods to ensure every man aboard a profitable share. More importantly, the crew has survived another foray into the dangerous waters, where Spanish patrols hunt pirates with increasing determination. Nassau Harbor appears as welcoming as ever, filled with ships flying the black flag and others of more questionable allegiance. The town beyond the waterfront bustles with the unique energy of a place where anything can be bought or sold, where men live by their wits and their weapons, and where the only law is the code of honor among thieves. As the Revenge drops anchor among the other pirate vessels, you feel the familiar mixture of relief and anticipation that marks the end of one cruise, and the preparation for whatever comes next. The pirate's life continues its eternal cycle of danger and reward, hardship and freedom, always balanced on the knife's edge between survival and destruction. But for now, there's the immediate pleasure of safe arrival, profitable cargo to be divided, and the simple joy of being alive in one of the most beautiful places on Earth. The Caribbean sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors, the gentle lapping of waves against the hull, and the knowledge that you've chosen your own path through life. These are the compensations that make the pirate's dangerous existence worthwhile. Tomorrow will bring new decisions and new challenges, but tonight there's just the peaceful satisfaction of another successful cruise completed, another step taken on the long and uncertain road of the Caribbean pirate's life.